see my eyes. So I want to say to everyone, the topic, which I think is hilarious, but real, is how to do something when you can't do anything. From frustration to action, empowering ourselves and others to participate in productive partnerships. That's a lot. So I just need to know by show of hands, how many people sometimes find themselves frustrated in the work that you're doing? Okay, so that means you're in the right space. Is there anyone who is also frustrated? Because you're going to be our guru. You're going to be the expert. Okay, no one's raising their hand, so everyone will own that there's some frustration. So the other thing I want to share is this is a safe space. I want you to imagine, and you can remember, there used to be these things called phone booths. And they were encased in glass, just like this room. And only you and the person you were talking to could really hear you. We are having a conversation today. This is a cafe. So I want you to imagine you're just in a cafe phone booth. What happens here stays here. We're not going to talk about this on the public square because it's private, vulnerable situations that you may be discussing with your table mates. Don't worry, we're not going to have any major yelling out of things, so everyone will know what your frustrations are, because remember, we're not focusing on that, we're focusing on action. So the first thing I want you to think about and to remember is, what is your purpose? What is your assignment? What are you hired to do? What action are you expected to take in your designated role? Think about that. We all have a description of what we were hired to do, what someone expects us to do. Never mind if you don't get to do it. I'm asking you to think about, what is your purpose? What is your assignment? What is your role? If you're going to move from frustration to action, you have to know that. Because that is going to be your go-to. You have to know what you are supposed to do. No matter what anyone else is saying for you to do, you have to know what you are hired to do. And then you have to act as if, of course that's what I'm going to do. Because that is what I was hired to do. And you don't do it in a way that seems as if you're going against someone. You're going to do it in a way that's very natural. It's filled with your passion around the work, because that's what you were hired to do. You're almost going to do it as a matter of fact. Because why wouldn't you? When you interviewed, when you said, this is the job for me, this is what I want to do, this is how I want to be engaged, as a professional, you're going to act that way, no matter what anyone else is doing or saying around you. And you say, well, Donna, you say that, but how do I do that when that little clause at the end of my description says, and other matters or things as needed? And it seems like my other things in the matters are larger than all the other 7 bullets for my job. Okay, so that's what we're going to talk about. So the first thing I want you to do, because it's a conversation, is I want you to think about, what is your largest frustration about that last thing? How to focus on those other things that have nothing to do with your main purpose. What is your, you might have multiple. I can't handle multiple today. I just want you to think what you have to say. What is your largest frustration? On your table, there are pens. And there are also markers. For this, for your frustration, share a piece of paper. Don't worry, no one's going to look at it. I want you to write down that large frustration. Where is it? On this white piece of paper on your table, with a pen, not with a marker, with a pen. The marker is something else. And now I want you to think about, what is your biggest joy? What is the biggest joy of the work that you do, either as a parent leader, as a liaison, as a homeschool coordinator, as a person who's in charge of a central office division? What is the greatest joy of your work? What is the greatest joy? Picture that. And now I want you to take a marker, put those pens down, and I want you to take a bright marker, and I want you to put that joy over that frustration. I want you to put it big, I want you to put it bright. If you're going to move from frustration to action, you have to change your lens to put it right over it. This is graffiti art. It doesn't mean the frustration goes away, but it becomes the background. It becomes smaller. the only right thing you're going to do. Somehow, because I am not technical, something else printed out with it. And it happens to be probably my biggest joy in the work that I do. It's a picture of my son. So if I was there, I would probably put a mom. Because anytime I get frustrated in my work, I remember why I'm a parent leader, why I'm a parent advocate, why my full-time job is being a mom to a mom. Everything else is part-time. My biggest joy. And so that keeps me moving forward. And I don't allow the frustrations to take over. Because when you look at him, what, you want to do something? Pass it around. All right? Pass it around so you understand why I work the way I work, no matter what. I want you to keep in mind that as you begin to think about what it is that is challenging about your work, when you have one of those moments, also give yourself the moment to say, but what is important about my work? What really matters and what gives me joy in the work? And allow that to cancel out the frustration problem. Because if you stay in frustration and let that rule you, you will never move into action. So how do you begin to move to action, even though you might have frustrating times? The second thing, first thing I said was you have to know your purpose, what your role is and what your assignment is. Then you have to envision a parent, community, and or school partnership that can be supported by your role in policy. How many of you are in jobs that actually are supported by some form of parent and community engagement policy? Okay? Oh, not all of you? That's amazing. Most of you, I bet if you check, your job exists because somewhere there is either a policy, either legislation, or an internal community or district policy that call for this form of engagement. Know it. Have it. I'm not saying memorize it, but know your context. Know that there's something that supports you doing your purpose. Because when people try to get you off your purpose, if you have some purpose work to do, you always get to say, but remember, we agreed that I needed to do X, Y, and Z. Whether they said it out loud, if they agreed or not. When they hired you and there was a description and there's a policy that says parents are supposed to be engaged, this is what you asked for. So I'm going to get to that, but I have to get to this first because we have to get this too. And sometimes you have to do something because there's a reporting piece that includes not only your local, but the state. Feel free to blame it on somebody else. And if you're going to blame it on someone else, try to make it somebody who's a little bit larger than your local context. Amen. Okay? There's power in understanding your role as well as the policy that supports your role. But you want to know that you don't have to do it alone. You want to begin to envision who can I partner with to make my purpose happen. All of you who are working in terms of engaging community, engaging parents, that is not a one person, one man, one woman job. That's about the next piece. Build allies within and outside of your immediate work environment. The allies might not be your usual suspects. So for instance, you might think, of course, the person who I work for should be my biggest ally. They may not, because they have other stuff to do. And guess what? They like what you do, and they like you helping them get their job done. The real deal is, though, they can't necessarily help you to only do yours. So I'm not saying you don't help them. Of course you do. But you have to build some allies who can help you achieve your vision. But you got to have the vision first. And the vision cannot be, I'm going to save the entire world. I'm going to do all of this. I'm going to engage every parent at every district level and all of that because that's too much for you. Your vision needs to be aligned with what your role is. So maybe it's you're going to engage 80 to 90 to 100% of parents at your school. You're going to engage 100% of the parents who are involved with this particular community, whether it's health, whether it's another alternative education system. Focus on your purpose as you align your vision. Build allies. There may be allies who, they don't have to necessarily be your friends, but to make sure that parents are engaged. So for schools, you need to get some allies in the front room, in the classroom. Okay? Who are the people, who are the teachers who really want to have that parent engagement piece that's meaningful? Not just a show up, but that's meaningful, that aligns with your vision. Who are the teachers who are respected, who can carry the message that you need to get carried to every classroom? So you start with them, and then say, hey, can you do me a favor? When you're at your staff meeting, can you pass this out? That's an ally. They're not doing your job. They're just supporting you in doing it. Who in the community really cares about your school, wants to be supportive, and has some resources that can support some of your great work? So you're not saying, oh, you know what? I think we've used all of our Title I. Or what parents want to do, it's a little different from meeting the academic standard piece, but we need to do this in order to get them in here for the academic standard. So how do I get the resources, though, to support the piece that's not academic? Allies. You need allies. You want to build it. I can remember when I was in Lisa's role as a coordinator of the Parent Center, and we had adult education, English as a second language, GED, and technology classes. Fantastic for parents, free. They were all offered at 9-something in the morning. Now, the last time I checked, parents work at 9-something in the morning. Some work in the afternoon, some work in the evening. I needed to find something different. So for someone who worked a light shift, maybe a 9 o'clock class worked, because then they could just come and then go home and rest before their job. But for someone who had to be at work at 9, having a class at 9 didn't work. So I knew we needed to have evening classes and we needed to have weekend classes. And I knew that we were not getting any more money to do it. So I needed an ally. I needed someone who could envision with me creatively how we could adjust our budget, or who could possibly find another resource out of the different from the priority grant to fund evening or Saturday programs. So who did I go to? An ultimate educator who at that time just happened to be the chair of the Board of Education, Nancy G. And we sat down, we talked about the vision. I said, Nancy, this is great that we're doing this, but Nancy, there's a gap, and I want your help. How can we close this gap? She said, Donna, are you serious? We don't have classes in the evening? She seemed surprised by it. We don't have classes. I said, no. She said, you're willing to do that? I said, yes, and at no additional cost from my salary. That was my gift. I was willing to do that. You may not be able to do that, but guess what? We have evening classes and we have weekend classes. As a result of that board chair recognizing the need to happen and her finding another resource to make it happen. Find an ally to support your work. The other thing you want to do then is begin to engage with these partners, with these allies, around parent initiatives that, again, align with your vision and also your job description. So you notice, I went to talk to her about what my responsibility was. I did not go to talk about something else that I cared about in the community. I talked to her about my job, what I was being asked to do, to provide a resource to all parents in our school district. And we were failing them in some way. So you have to think about what is it that there's a gap for you that you might have. And so when you partner, you want the partnership to close the gap. To close the gap. The partnership has a purpose. It's not just because you want to get together and have fun. Though you should do that. Trust me, because you got to take care of yourself. The other thing you want to do, and this part gets tricky, but it can happen. You have to make sure you include, inform, are you ready? And celebrate the leaders who are not as supportive. Include, inform, and celebrate the leaders who are not as supportive. So the person who might be giving you the biggest frustration, and we're not calling any names today, but let's just say it's your actual boss. You need that leader to be informed of your work. One, because they evaluate you. Okay? Right? Two, you're in their job. You share space in terms of working. So though you might not be able to have them be the leading champion of the partnership, you want to make sure they are aware and how these partnerships are benefiting them, their school, their community resource center, whatever it get them to the other side to see the goodness of what you're doing, they might not become an ally, but they may stop being the frustration. They may stop saying, what do you mean you can't do this because you have to do your job? I know that sounds crazy, but I heard it. Last two, you want to call upon your allies to help move the above leaders. So sometimes you may not be able to do all of the celebrating of that leader. You may need your allies to give a call and say, thank you, for allowing Lisa to work with me on because we've been able to do X. Sometimes it has to be peer-to-peer, and it has to be executive to executive. Make sure you have an ally who is a partner with your boss, because that can make all the difference. Utilize them to support you in that work. They celebrate you, but they also celebrate the leader who may not be as supportive of the work, and they begin to share with them the value of the work and how the value of the work benefits them. Final thing I want you to do is to breathe. Take a deep breath. When you are frustrated, take a really, really deep breath and remember your purpose. Remember why you are here. Remember what you have been hired to do. Now let me share with you. You may have to take a lot of deep breaths. But that is so good for your body and for your soul and your spirit, I promise you. Take slow breaths where you feel your stomach expand. And when you exhale, when you let out that frustration. You have to get to the place where you give yourself permission to let it go. Because if you're honest, what does the frustration do? Does it change anything? Except your blood pressure? Right? Does it paint a different picture? No. So don't allow it to take up residence in your mind, in your heart, in your spirit. Breathing allows you to let it go. Give yourself a moment to remember why you are here. And then go back to doing that, no matter what.